Hi everyone, welcome to Crew Talk, sponsored by Shoots.video. I'm really excited today to have two wonderful guests with me. And Micah, do you want to say your name, introduce yourself, just give us a little intro spiel about you?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Micah Knapp. I'm a producer and director here in the Seattle area, and I work on commercials, music videos, documentaries, shorts, and feature films. And I'm working on my first directorial feature right now.
Congrats. Awesome. I look forward to hearing more about that. And by the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Deborah Lee Smith. I am an actor, producer, writer located in Los Angeles. And again, I'm really excited to be here for Crew Talk. Ilya, let's hand it over to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello. Yes, my name is Ilya. And I just moved to Seattle, actually. I moved from Chicago. So this is a new place for me. And I'm a FPV drone pilot.
Very cool. That's awesome. I really look forward to hearing more about that. I've done a little bit of drone work with one feature that I produced, but I'm excited to learn more.
Shoots Video is a place for creatives to showcase their work and be seen by producers, marketing managers, corporate executives, and other future clients. Add your reel to Shoots Video today.
So, Micah, how did you get started in production? And obviously you do a lot of different types of production. So just give us an overview of how you got started.
Yeah, it's been a long road. When I was 8 years old, I got super inspired by Steven Spielberg and Jurassic Park, and was like, he made dinosaurs real. I want to make movies. And was like, I want to be a filmmaker. I started studying all his films and reading about him and his life. I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. So I saved up $500 and bought a video camera. Back then, it was like a high Hitachi video camera, so you're like shooting on old tapes, editing in camera. But yeah, started making movies with my brothers, and eventually transitioned into having a company of my own, doing commercials and music videos and shorts. And then I, from there, transitioned into working freelance in the Seattle market, directing and producing.
That's awesome. Are you from Seattle originally, or?
I'm from a town close by. It's Bellingham, Washington. It's like 2 hours north of Seattle. It's super close to Canada. Very supportive art scene there, though. So
it is. That's an amazing city. I love that place. Yeah, that's great. And what about you, Ilya? You were mentioning before we started recording that you are from Russia. So I'm so curious how you got into production in Russia.
I actually started video here when I moved here. That was 11 years ago. Yeah, I've been in the US for 11 years. I moved to Chicago, and I never used camera back in Russia. So it all started here. Started with a GoPro. I was just, playing around, making some dumb videos about travels and time lapses, and, putting it on the car, just trying to find places to put it somewhere and make something out of it. And it kind of evolved. Then I got into drones, and the rest is history. Here we are.
Very cool. And was there like a film or a show or like something that inspired you, or how did you decide to start playing?
Well, YouTube. Yeah, I was watching YouTube and all the travel videos, and I was like, oh, I want to film with a GoPro, and I'm a pretty active person. So traveling, biking, or, doing different sports, I would mount it somewhere and make a video, go snowboarding and stuff like that, and make a video of that. And then I thought, okay, how do I make it my job? I mean, I really enjoy it, and looks like I'm doing good. At least that what I thought back then. Now I'm looking at the old videos, you know how it is. And then I got a present, a drone, and I never even thought about drones before that. And I was like, oh, drone, that's fun. And started flying, those white Phantoms back in the day. So started with that. Got my Part 107 shortly, probably like a year, 2 years in of flying. And been flying just regular GPS drones, and then that wasn't enough. Again, YouTube, FPV drones, seeing all the cool videos, people flying, and started building drones and just making fun videos again. And then it evolved into a job.
And you have to be a drone pilot, do you have to have a level of certification as far as a pilot's license or something like that, or is that like a different classification for things?
Yes, FAA has a specific license for drone operators. It's called Part 107. So if you're a commercial drone operator, that's what you need. And yeah, I mean, if you're a real pilot flying planes, that makes it pretty easy to get one, because you will know all the information that you need to know for Part 107.
Right.
If you're just starting, it's pretty extensive amount of information that you need to learn about airspace, weather, and operations, airport operations, and stuff like that.
Very cool. And what kind of projects are you working on right now? As far as are you doing more drone work, or what's exciting you?
Right now, I moved to Seattle a month ago, so this is like completely new scene for me, and making new connections, meeting new people, connecting with production companies, and yeah, seeing what's around. This is a pretty cool place. Finally, weather getting better. So for flying, weather is important. Though we can fly indoors with small drones like this, we can fly indoor and make cool stuff inside too. But good weather helps. So yeah, making new connections. I have a project lined up in Miami. Hopefully it happens this month. The weather is there. It's not great either. It's raining. So waiting on that. Yeah, that's how it is.
Awesome. Micah, what's going on in your world? Any Steven Spielberg like dinosaurs that you're doing or anything like that?
Yeah, I wish. No, I'm doing. I'm actually in post-production right now on my feature 1111, and we're composing it right now, doing the sound design, getting it ready for film festivals end of the year right now, and I have a couple of short films as well that I'm wrapping up, and then just in Seattle here, there's mostly a lot of commercial work, so that's kind of been the focus as far as day to day. But the feature's been a couple of years in the making, so I've been focused on getting that wrapped up and ready to go to and get it out into the world. But it's more inspired by kind of Terrence Malick kind of work. It's more visual and music based, dramatic stuff. So no dinosaurs so far.
Too bad. Dang it.
I know.
And what Amazon is based up in Seattle, right? So do you do a lot of commercials for them?
It is, yeah. A lot of Microsoft stuff here, a lot of Amazon. That's kind of the primary jobs that a lot of people get up here is doing commercial work for those companies. They have a huge footprint here, obviously, so there's a lot of that kind of work. But yeah, those are kind of the two main.
Very cool. Sorry, guys, I'm having a coughing fit right now.
No worries.
So what, with your, your commercials and stuff, what role do you occupy on those projects?
Yeah, I've been producing and directing in the last few years. I tend to fall more into producing these days. It's just a job that I sort of fell into. I think I'm good at pulling people and things together and making things happen. So I started getting hired at more as a producer the last couple of years. So I've been doing a lot of producing for different companies in the area, and that seems to be what I've fallen into more so. But I also direct quite a bit too, so it's kind of a balance of the two.
What do you prefer?
Yeah, I think I'm more passionate about directing. It's more intuitive for me. I think it's more what I'm drawn to. But I've naturally had to produce all my own projects anyways, so I feel like I kind of self-taught a lot of producing work. So that's something that I kind of, just people started hiring me more for that over time, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that kind of goes into what my next question was going to be, was how has your role evolved on your different projects? And is there, you already are doing a lot of things. Is there something else that you want to get into next? Are you going to be an actor, or are you stuck? Are you done?
I don't know. You might be convincing me. It sounds like that's what you do a lot of. Maybe I need to step into that.
Yeah.
No, I do a lot of commercial work, so I think naturally I want to. I've done quite a few indie features in the area. I've produced a couple indie features. I've helped shoot some documentaries. I really want to get more into features. I think that's where my passion is, and I think I'm stepping more into that. I'm producing a feature this summer, and it's something I want to get more involved with because I love narrative filmmaking, and I think that's always been my passion. Obviously, you have to pay the bills, but I love to do more and more of that kind of work, and documentary too. I also love telling real stories, and there's just something beautiful about that, working with real people and getting the stories out of people in interviews. I think that's beautiful too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I promise I'm gonna go to someone else in a second, but I just want to hone in on that documentary piece there for a second. What do you feel is the biggest difference for you between filming documentary and then narrative and commercials? I mean, they're all kind of have their own version of storytelling, and I'm just curious what you see as the difference and what you enjoy.
Yeah, with narrative, I love like crafting a story. You're telling a story. You can really light it and take your time to build a scene. So there's more control in a way. But I also love with documentaries, it's typically more stripped down. The crew's smaller, typically, at least the ones I've been on, and it's you're able to draw out a story. You have to kind of like have an idea of where you're going with it. But I feel like oftentimes the story comes out naturally, which I love. I think that's great. And then working with real people and telling their story. I think also B-roll has gotten more interesting in documentaries now. And I think it helps make it more cinematic and more interesting, I think, to the viewer. And I think people like documentaries more now. And I think there's just something beautiful and powerful about telling a story with real people and letting it naturally evolve. So that's what I love. I love that element of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was sharing before that I just have a documentary that's premiering at Tribeca, and I think that was one of the most interesting things about that experience, because I normally work in narrative, is the fact that with documentaries you're definitely honing in on the story that unfolds as you're filming, instead of coming into the filming and having something very specific. You just kind of like see what happens and roll with the punches, which is kind of the best part about storytelling, just like seeing what happens, which I really enjoy. So yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And same to you on the Tribeca film. And I think also just the you're learning as you're making the documentary, you're letting the story unfold, like you said. And I think it's beautiful to have it that you learn something as you're doing it, and everyone on the crew probably as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah. So Ilya, what, you obviously are you primarily a drone operator now, and how did that evolve? Is that kind of going to be your main shtick, or do you have like another thing that you want to evolve into?
Yeah, I really enjoy flying. So for me, it all started with actual flying, not filming. I started flying for fun, and then I thought about application of filming. And I started with small drones, just flying for fun indoors, and then went outside with bigger drones, putting GoPro on top and just flying for fun, filming how you fly. And because back then it wasn't a thing to film with FPV, it was just cool videos of people flying around trees, parks, different things. It all came from racing as well. And there was like two departments, racing and freestyle. And now there is another venue is filming. And that's my primary thing to film FPV. I can operate cameras, but I really enjoy flying and getting cool shots. It evolved from those small drones now into these big guys with cinema cameras. So you can put Komodo on a drone and get quality out of it. And now you can see these drones and cameras used in big movies. Netflix just released a couple of movies. The one was in in movies. Just recently, Ambulance, Michael Bay movie. If you guys seen that one, there is a lot of action FPV shots, and it's something new. People enjoy it. For me, it's kind of everyday thing, but most of the people don't see it that often as I am, and it's pretty cool. And it's a new perspective. You can do so much with it. You can get these new angles, so much variety of things that you can do, and that's what I really enjoy when I see this scene and ideas start trickling in. Like, how can I show this from my perspective, from aerial view? How can I get around the building and reveal, dive down, or fly through something and reveal a subject or a scene? And that creates that really energetic, cool shots that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you particular, I know you just moved to Seattle, but do you usually have like a specific DP and stuff that you like to work with, or do you kind of just move around depending upon the production and their needs?
It depends. Sometimes you'll have somebody within a production that can assist you, but it's better to have somebody somebody you trust. For FPV, you need to have a visual observer. Since you don't have a visual on a drone, and it's required, you always have a VO, and it will tell you what's going on around the drone, where people, cars, and what's going on. And really good to have somebody that you know and trust, and they know what you're doing. So it's much easier to work with.
Yeah, very cool. And what, if someone was starting out and wanting to do what you do, what is the essential must-have gear that you would say is in your kit? And I'm sure that like what you have now as far as cinematic cameras is definitely more than just someone starting out would necessarily have. But if you want to just give a brief overview of.
Yeah, there is a lot of new people coming into FPV scene, and it's pretty cool to see. Now it's easier to get into FPV because there is so many tools and the information about it. Back in the day, you had to build everything yourself and figure out, go into like Facebook groups and make sure everything works correct. You couldn't get it pre-built. Now you can get them online pre-built, and people will, answer all the questions, and you have a lot of support. But to get started, what you do is you get a remote and you practice on the computer. You don't even need a real drone. You just flying FPV drones is different than a regular GPS drones. You don't have any stabilization. You control it manually, essentially. So each axis control manually with a stick movement. And you just get a remote, start flying in a simulator. Once you get that figured out, then you can go outside and crash a real one.
Is there a specific program that you recommend as far as a flight simulator?
Yeah, there is quite a few. My favorite one is Velocidrone. It's pretty accurate to a real thing. So feel-wise, when you go outside and fly, it will feel very similar to what you feel in a simulator. Because there is different parameters, like the throw of the drone. When you punch out, some simulators are very floaty. It doesn't feel natural. It's like you go up and slowly goes down. There is DRL as well, and liftoff. Any of those will do, but Velocidrone is my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So anyone watching, if you're really obsessed with like Mario Kart, this would be your next thing. Micah, what about you? What's your essential must-have gear?
Must-have gear, yeah.
Or program, or anything like that.
There he is. Yeah. Looks like he's back.
He's back in action.
Well, go ahead if you want to go ahead, Micah.
Sure. Yeah. I work with a lot of DPs and Steadicam ops that have all their gear. That's something that's nice in Seattle. Is it's a small network, but a lot of us know each other, and everyone owns their own gear, so it's easy to bring on whatever we need for a project. But I'm also a camera lover, so I actually just got a Komodo with some anamorphic lenses.
Nice.
And it's my guilty pleasure. I'm wanting to get more into shooting anamorphic on projects, and the Komodo was just too tempting not to get. So It's it's a small camera. You can, I think they even made it as a crash camera originally, but it's great. It's powerful. It looks amazing. But anamorphics, I think, are something that I want to start bringing out more often.
Yeah.
And shooting on. I've always loved the look, and I want to do more of that on my narrative work.
DPs must love you.
Yeah, right.
So you're going to give them anamorphic. That's great.
Exactly. Yeah, a couple other guys I work with just got a couple too. So we're building up an array of them. So
that's awesome. And from a producer standpoint, like, how do you like to organize, your do you line produce your own stuff as well, or do you have someone else who kind of handles all that paperwork and everything?
It depends on the project. I have line produced quite a few times on commercials as well. So sometimes that's me. Other times I'm hiring a line producer or somebody to deal with the budget or sort of organizing things. But I've been on lots of small productions where you can have, doing multiple producer things. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But it is nice when you can break that down and you have multiple roles and you can hire a line producer. But I've sort of jumped around and done a bit of everything. So I definitely have that experience as well. But I like creative producing. I like bringing crews together, people together, making stuff happen, locations. I started out doing things on such a making shit happen when there was, pulling stuff out of nothing basically and making things happen. And I feel like you kind of have to do that on small budgets. And then as you get bigger budgets and work on bigger jobs, it's nice to be able to be like, oh, now I can delegate that task, or we have the money to get that. So
yeah,
it's nice what I like about, I've done a lot of roles on set, and what I like about that and having done that is that I've gained knowledge of different, departments, whether it's G&E or camera department, is what they're feeling or thinking probably. So as a producer, you can be ahead of the game and, make sure everything's lined up and ready to go, or you have what you need. I think it informs that role if you've done other roles on set. And then when I get to direct, it's like, that's my creative space that I love being in, and, working with character and what's the motivation and the story and the vision and,
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. That's why I act when I produce oftentimes, because that's my creative outlet, more so than just the creative producing. Tyler, I'm going to go over to you in a second, but just one more question for you, Micah. What kind of clients do you work with up in Seattle?
Yeah, I've been all over the place. I've done stuff for MTV, Buna Murray, worked with ASICS last year, lots of Microsoft, Amazon work. Worked with a couple companies out of New York. There did some documentary features I worked with. Kind of all over the place,
yeah.
a bit of everything. And then, like I said, I'm producing an indie feature this summer. So it's depends on if it's, indie work or the commercial stuff, but there's a ton of the Microsoft and Amazon work here in Seattle.
Yeah. There's a lot of money for it. So it's great. Yeah. It's great that you can work with them.
Yeah. And some of those are fun too. I mean, depending on the project, it can be fun or creative, or we did a bunch that were LGBTQ series or Black History Month, or these more interesting story-wise, or mini documentaries or more creative commercials. And those are the ones that I still love doing it. It's still, you can still kind of fit a narrative into those pieces too.
Yeah, absolutely. Ilya, what when you were working in Chicago, what kind of clients were you working with?
So I did a lot of real estate back in Chicago.
Okay.
But some fun clients we had were, we filmed for Ryder Cup. It's a golf tournament up in Wisconsin. That was pretty cool. Worked with Bulls too, and a couple of commercials and just some content for them. And there is a big auto show in Chicago that I flew. That was pretty cool too, flying. I mean, it's a huge venue and you have so many cars that you can fly around. And each vendor has its own thing and theme. It's pretty cool to fly around through cars and just show how big it is. That was fun too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. How have things changed for you?
Well, for me, things changed quite a bit. It's a completely new place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, new scene, new life, just trying to figure out everything from the ground. It's tough, but exciting too. You need to make new connections, new people. You still have all the people that you know from Chicago, but here in a new place, you get new opportunities and going around meeting new people. Everybody's so nice here in Seattle compared to Chicago. I can tell you that. Yeah. Chicago is, I don't know what's going on there. I heard a lot about Seattle freeze, that people are not friendly here. And I got here and everybody's smiling and happy to see me like, oh, what are you guys talking about Seattle freeze? It's not a thing. So not sure about that one. But yeah, everybody is so nice. And anywhere I go, people so happy to communicate. And yeah, I enjoy it so far.
I feel like it's never as bad as people say it is, and then you get to the city, because people always say that, like, about Los Angeles, that, like, you know, people are self-centered and I don't know, whatever. There's all sorts of stereotypes, I feel like, about each individual market, and then you get there and you're like, it's actually not that bad. You just got to find your people, find your good people. So Micah, same question. How have things changed for you over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I think kind of like what you were saying, it just you build a network over time, you grow a network, make connections, and some of those people move to different cities, and then you know they have connections there, and it's kind of this even bigger network that's like expanding from there. And I think that just word of mouth, I think, gets around. At least for me, that's helped. Being around for a while in the scene, you get to know everybody, and they know you and your work and your style. And I think it's about finding people that you like working with, but they're also competent and good at the job. That balance. But also, I think the COVID stuff, I hate to mention, obviously changed a lot of things too. I know everywhere was different. Everyone I know had a different experience, but I was lucky in that I was able to keep some jobs during the beginning of COVID. A lot of it shut down, but there was just a lot of new things we had to get used to, especially producing. We're, COVID compliance officer on set now and going through COVID safety. And you're also responsible for people's safety and also people dropping out if they had a negative test, and just shooting in an environment wearing face shields as a director or whatever it is, it was cool that we were still able to do our job and be safe. But it was definitely difficult. And during the early stages, it was just a lot of, learning and trials and errors and trying to navigate what that world was like. So the last couple of years I've been that, but also funny enough for myself, 2020 was hard, but 2021 was one of the busiest years for me production wise. I don't know if everyone just was ready to shoot,
Yeah.
Yeah. Same in LA for you?
Yeah, it was. And in other places, the doc that I shot was New York, Florida, Pittsburgh, just DC, all over. So yeah.
Yeah, but which is great. Which I'm happy. I'm happy people are back to it, and it's still being safe. But those are the main things, I think. And then just growing your network, and I think if you do good work and you're a decent person and you try and be kind and put yourself out there in a positive way, I think you'll do great. So I think doing those things, that's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And what important lessons do you think that you've learned throughout the years? And you can talk about COVID, but also, pre-COVID. And for someone who is just starting out, what would you say is some good tips or little nuggets of advice for them?
Yeah, I think I know very little people that went to film school, and I'm not knocking film school. I think if you want to go and you have the money, that's great. I think it's more about connections.
Yep.
So I never recommend, with YouTube and everything now, I think it doesn't really matter. It depends on what you want to do. I think it's good to learn set protocols but you can do that as a PA. You can get on sets and learn how things work. And you're kind of doing that after you get out of film school anyways, unless you have some connections. So I think just being humble. If you don't know something, don't pretend and don't sort of front something. Just actually learn it and talk to people and ask questions. And I think you have to work for it. Some people, they want to just automatically get the thing that they want. I want to be this and do this role. And, and make films. And I was the same way, but I think you have to work your way through the industry. You have to, not that I don't think you have to follow a formula. I think you can do your own thing. And that's why I think it's great. Just grab a camera and go out and shoot something and come up with your own vision and style. And you don't have to follow what other people are doing necessarily. And don't burn bridges. I think that's important unless you need to or want to.
Right.
But yeah, I think just getting out there and getting on sets and meeting people and talking to people and networking. I feel like it's all networking, half of it.
Definitely.
And having some talent.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I definitely want to highlight your mention about asking questions on set. I think that that's so incredibly important, and also is a great way to kind of weed out the people who don't want to be helpful. Because I've certainly been on sets before with, I produced a feature with a first-time director, and the crew that was responsive to his questions were so much more helpful and are the people that I would hire back again. And the people who were dismissive of his questions or just didn't want to give him the babying that he needed in that sense are people that I would never hire again as a producer. I just think that it's, we're all just figuring out our way, and it's just so important to not be a dick and to just, help everyone. Like, yeah.
That's so true. And I think it's just important if you're crewing and producing jobs, just to build a really good team that works together really well. And like you said, if they don't know stuff, hiring them, knowing that, and letting them learn or whatever. But hiring people again that are good people and do a good job, and it can be fun. It doesn't have to be. I've worked on shoots that were just nightmares because the team didn't work well together, or they didn't. There was certain people in positions that just made the whole thing like a nightmare,
Yep.
And it starts at the top for sure. I think,
yep.
Above the line, but it's definitely, it helps all around a good team.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ilya, what about you? As far as what you've learned, how did your career and life change during COVID, and what bits of advice would you have for someone starting out?
For sure. Yeah, for me, it was a little different when everything halted production-wise. I had a lot of job because I was flying indoors and doing tours of different real estate projects, and nobody would go anywhere. So I had a lot of those to show, and it's like a virtual tour, and that's what I did. But yeah, I agree with you guys. Being nice on set makes a huge difference. Like the environment that you get on set directly shows in the final product that you produce. Because if it's not great, then it will show in the end product. And it's always much more enjoyable to work with a team that's tight and help each other, and nobody being a dick on set, And I enjoy those too, and always look forward to work again with those people rather than sets where it was nervous, tight, and not enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I always like to remind people when they're feeling resistant or whatever that like we have the best job in the world. Like we're just
right.
hanging out with awesome people and like telling stories. Like what is better? Like why have arguments or just be assholes? There's just no need for that at all. Micah, I'll go back to you. So do you have any how do you personally get work that is reel worthy? So, work that you want to be able to showcase to other people.
Yeah. Reel worthy. I feel like it seems random, at least as far as on my end, like jobs will come in or this opportunity comes up randomly. It seems like sometimes you take on a job and you never know, is this going to be like something that's worthy of showing to people afterwards, or putting on your reel, like you said. I think it just depends. I think it's yeah, I think putting yourself out there and different companies will, have a really interesting idea, or you have an interesting idea, and you have more creative freedom with the project. And I think you just never know. Sometimes it's a project is a money making thing, and you just have to take it. At least from my experience, and it's for the paycheck and not for the real. But I feel like it's important to either do something for the paycheck, do something for your real, or do something to learn something. Those one of those three things. And if you're not doing one of those three things, it doesn't make sense. It's like at a certain point, unless you're getting music videos, for instance, that are with a huge label and it's a big budget, it's usually losing money on it. I feel like I've done them in the past, and I typically would do it for bands that were, you know, ones I was passionate about or really liked, and I was like, yeah, I'll do this even though it's a low budget thing. But there were ones that I didn't get paid much, and back in the day, and it was almost not worth it. You're losing money that no one's seeing it, and it's not something you can put on your reel. So I think just striving for that and pushing for that, and always trying to push really creative, interesting concepts. And again, as you make your way through, like doing more narrative work, I think the narrative stuff is more interesting to show personally. Like on my reels, I tend to put more of the narrative work in there because I've been able to go more cinematic on that stuff. Sometimes you are on the commercial stuff, and then that's great. But
do you feel like you have a little bit more creative freedom when it comes to the narrative stuff?
I do just because I have my own way of telling stories, and I want to tell stories that are a little bit more on like the Terrence Malick kind of tone poem style, dramatic, focusing less on dialogue and more on visuals and music. Show don't tell. I'm taking that idea and kind of running with that. But I think, yeah, because I think I have creative freedom when I get to do that, and sometimes that is the case on commercials, but not always.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ilya, how do you select, what pieces that you have that you want to showcase on your reel, stuff like that?
So I want to say that you need to put yourself out there and show your work, because I'm pretty bad with that. I have so much footage that just sits on a hard drive and nobody ever seen it. Only people that I shot it with, and it's never gets out there. So just whatever you do, I'm pretty sure you do it well, and just put it out there, because as creator, you always striving to make it best, like, so everybody likes it. And I mean, you like it yourself first. And I always think like, oh, this is not like perfect. This is not good enough. So I won't put it out there. And then a year later, I see that footage and like, oh, why didn't I put it out there? I mean, it's good enough. Back then it was pretty good. Now I can do it probably better, but back then it was pretty good. And people need to see it. People need to see what you do, how you do it, and just show it, put it out there. It's gonna get you places. That's my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. It is very important to sometimes be immodest when it comes to sharing our work, and just like be proud of what we've put out there, and make sure to brag about yourself sometimes.
I also feel like to follow up with what you both were saying, I think it's okay to like sometimes just to suck for a while when you're doing stuff if
Definitely.
you have to. Like, I mean, because I think some people actually see your progress and they enjoy watching you grow, and it's hard when you're a perfectionist. But I feel like, yeah, just put your like Ilya was saying, put yourself out there and just grow as you're growing, and people will watch that and be like, that's awesome. They'll cheer you on. And I think you can't just start out being amazing. You have to. It's anything. The more time you put into it, you're gonna be better at it. So
yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what we were saying before about not being afraid to ask questions, because everyone started knowing nothing. Everyone has started at the base level, and so it is really inspiring, I think, to be able to watch other people's journey and learn from them and see how much they've grown, and all of that kind of stuff. So Mike and Ilya, I'm going to come back to you. So get your thinking caps on as far as your favorite project, and maybe some horror stories if you want to share. But we have a new panelist who has just jumped in for the last 15 minutes or so. If you want to introduce yourself, let us know, maybe some of, we could also just start with you as far as some of your favorite projects, some of your horror stories, what you've learned about yourself over the past couple of years. we'll just start to have a conversation with you. Welcome.
Hello. I was under Nuke, which is actually my brother. So there's three of us, and we're all like in the film industry. And so that's a big, like we always get that people get Nuke and Nut. But we've been doing my brother started doing his like filming when he was in middle school, and it's all that zombie craze. And so with one of those Sony point and shoots or Kodak point and shoots where you have to use AA batteries, that's what he started with. And so it kind of grew from there into like weddings. And so we had like a booth at Seattle Wedding Expo for about 7 years, and so that's been kind of a thing. And then but we kind of grew out of that into more of like the narratives, but now we do a lot of commercial political campaigns and various other things, like and some documentary work. What is it called? One of the things we just worked on included the Everett Police Department and a recruitment video for that, and so that was quite interesting, like project, because we were kind of given this exclusive like behind the door type of like VIP access. So like I was able to go in and record like part of a precinct or two, and then I was able to be in the car in the front and the back, to just feel how it is. And that was a very like fun recent shoot we just did. And me and Tyler actually work a lot together. We're all kind of in this production together as like
Nice.
Younger generation of filmmakers. We didn't go to film school, so it's kind of been kind of a learning and a trial and error type of thing. The other, one of the other things like he's talking about is the late night show is kind of a big thing for AAPI people, because it was held by a kind of like the host was an AAPI like representative person, and so everyone on the show had an involvement pertaining to AAPI. And so like one of the participants, he was a astronaut. Another was executive producer in the new Halo like series, but they also like helped produce the Halo original 343 Bungie game. And so it was very cool to be like in the presence of people like that, that you kind of like growing up I didn't think much about, but to kind of just see it right in front of my face, being like these like mid 20-year-old like videographer, cinematographer, etc. like roles like in that like huge production was definitely like a very cool experience. Because it was like me, Tyler, my brother, another guy, and we're all like these like younger guys. Just I don't know. I guess being that we're the younger like generation of like videographers, we don't meet a lot. We don't always get the opportunity to work with older generations or younger generations, but like we do get some older as a producer, right? Like but I've never had like the opportunity to work with another cinematographer who's older than me, but I've had producers who are older than me. But then I've also kind of been a mentor to like a high schooler or middle schooler. When I was in college myself, I Grand Cinema in Tacoma had a film camp, and I was kind of the mentor there, so I was able to like spark some like kids inspiration and creativity to become a director or filmmaker. And so now one of the kids that I was kind of like leading is looking at schools in California for like UCLA for film production. And so she's like, I really want to do this. This is my life. And so it's a good feeling to like be able to inspire people.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you're, already continuing to pass the baton. I think that's a really important aspect of filmmaking. And do you want to, just leave us with one bit of advice for those people that you're passing the baton to?
I think, honestly, I think the biggest one kind of is just start. Not everyone starts at the same level, and that's okay. And in due time, your confidence will grow in your skill, and so will your skill change, and you'll adapt, and you'll be able to like find your style, find like a style that works well with you.
Totally.
Like I'm not much into like commercial shooting or commercial editing. But narrative is my kind of like fun, slow. I find that fun. But like I know friends who are really like into the commercial or music video. And so, you find the niche for you that makes it fun, right? It's not a job, it's a career, right? It's something you wake up and be like, hey, you know what? I can make the world better today than it was before by contributing however I, can.
Very cool. Awesome. Ilya, do you want to let us know some favorite projects and potentially some horror stories?
Sure. Yeah. Just want to comment on making a world a better place. That's a good way to put it. That's what we're striving for, right? And it's good to think about it. If you're making something and it makes the world a better place, just keep doing it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I like to work with talents. So if I'm flying around people, that's kind of my favorites, where you shoot some action. One of my favorites was shooting Chicago Bulls. When you combine a lot of talent on set, you create something special. So we had a lot of people jump in with balls and dancing, and just a lot of people to work with, and that creates something really interesting and fun and cool. And you can stage and see what you can create. That was one of my favorites.
Very
and
cool.
There is one, well, not terribly horror, but sketchy. When I was on the shoot, it was like a warehouse, and people were being forced out of there with the police, and they didn't want to leave. It's like a junkyard-ish type of warehouse where they repair cars, and there is a bunch of small shops, and it's like not in the best neighborhood in Chicago. And I'm there with all the camera equipment, walking around and filming the space so that it can be sold. There is a bunch of police and sketchy people with guns, probably. So, yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. Micah, you're last up, and I like ending on high notes. So why don't you start with a horror story and then one of your favorite projects?
Yeah. I don't know if it's a horror story. There's been shoots that were bad that there's not really an interesting story behind it. But 6 or 7 years ago, I was a field producer on The Real World, that reality TV show. And it was my first foray into the reality TV scene. So it was very different. Lots of alpha male types, lots of fighting going on. It was just interesting because we were sort of monitoring everybody on the cast the whole time, and dealing with situations in real life that were not the most flattering or fun. Breaking people up or stopping an abusive guy from abusing another woman that was on the cast. But yeah, we were shooting around Seattle streets, and we'd have people that hated the show yelling at us or the crew and cast, and we would go to the bars, and people would be, same thing. There'd be fights breaking out, and one of the things I witnessed was one of the cast members finding out she was pregnant on the shoot and having to go home. It was like seeing that,
Wow.
Being the first person to see that, and it was like, I shouldn't be watching this right now. This doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
It's like just the drama that sort of that unfolds in those kind of shows. It was an experience, but it was at times a little bit horrifying.
I'm sure.
Dealing with that energy, and then like also everyone's drinking, so it's even worse. Yeah, it's not necessarily a horror story, but it was definitely something very different.
It's definitely a different kind of storytelling. So
it's like stuff that you wouldn't normally tolerate on a set or a shoot, so it's interesting just to like let it play out, and like they want that,
Yeah.
But on the other end, yeah, I think I think directing my first feature that I'm in post on right now, because it was something I've wanted to do for years. And even though it was low budget, it was something that was like fulfilling a part of me that I had talked about doing for years and wanted to do for a long time. And just to have the creative freedom to make a piece and make it the way I wanted to make it with the people I wanted to make it with. And it's very fulfilling creatively. So that was beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's so special when you find those people, hold on to them, and then make stories together. I think that's really important.
Right? We get to play for a living, right?
Yeah.
Make believe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're at an hour, and usually these run about an hour. So does anyone have any last things they want to say before we wrap it up?
I'm just stoked. I want to see your feature.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Reading Rainbow. I have a feature about Reading Rainbow, which is really fun because I definitely grew up watching Reading Rainbow as a kid. So it premieres at Tribeca next week, and I'm excited to see, what we've got quite a few offers, but we're just kind of waiting to see what happens with Tribeca. And the documentary market is very interesting. It definitely, goes, I think, through a lot more ebbs and flows than I think narrative markets do. And so yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'll keep everyone updated. If everyone if you want to just go down the line and let us know what's the best way to keep in contact with you, if you want people to keep in contact with you, and it will also be put in the chat of the YouTube. So for me, I'm available on Instagram, and I also actually have a mental health podcast, and that's also on Instagram. And I always love giving people advice or talking to people about filmmaking. So this has been a real pleasure to talk with you all. Micah, where can people find out more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us, and it was a pleasure. And I can drop my I think both of my websites, micahknapp.com, it's my name. I can drop that in the chat as well as my IMDb page and Vimeo, so which is vimeo.com/micahknapp. So
very cool.
It's just my name.
Great.
My name.
Easy to find you. Ilya, what about you?
Yeah, thanks for having me as well as a new member of Seattle community. I'm happy to be here.
Glad
you can find me as Ilya FPV on all social media things, and my website as well, ilyafpv.com. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find, and send me a message, get in touch.
Yeah, great. And Nat, why don't you bring us home? How can people keep in contact with you?
I just want to first apologize that how late I was. It was a conflicting schedule.
Not at all. We're glad that you could pop in for the last little bit.
Thank you for having us all. And Seattle, I think that's the big thing, is like Seattle, I feel like it's not represented all the time. And so it's nice to, be able to express that. I have an Instagram that I usually use for like my filming and acting. But it's not the same name as Nut, because Nut is my nickname. And so I have a different, it's a long name. It's my first name, which is 10 letters, my last name, which is 10 letters. So like I can put that somewhere, And then I have I have my own like company too. I wanted to start, because I think in life and in anything, like the best way to learn is to just do it. And so I kind of, I'm learning as a business person, as like a filmmaker, and kind of merging it together. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you everyone for being here as part of Crew Talk. I don't work in Seattle. I work in Los Angeles, but I've also worked up in Pacific Northwest in Portland. So I'm just excited to be included as part of this group. And we will catch you all next time. Lovely to meet everyone.
You might be looking at Shoot Stop Video and thinking, so how does this all work? Is this about A, setting up the whole crew for me, B, just giving me options and having me handle it, or C, something in between? Well, it's D, all of the above. To put it simply, we're here to help you in any way that we can to get the crew and talent you need for your next production. We believe that every level of video production can benefit from a well-maintained list of qualified crew members for every position. This goes for pre-pro, on-set, and for post. Every project is different, so if you need a producer to help manage the decision-making process, then we can totally do that. If you're already a producer and want to build your own crew from scratch, then go for it. We're here to make your next production a success. And if you are crew or talent looking for producers that want you, then you've come to the right place. Sign up now, and also leave a referral for any solid people that you know that are already on here. Thank you for considering Shoots.video, and happy shooting!